Osha becomes tempted by the dark side of the Force in this week's episode of The ACOLYTE, which picks up not long after the cliffhanger of episode 5 and sees Osha taking to Queermere's mysterious island hideout. After last week's action-packed episode, this one slows it back down again and focuses on Queermere and his seduction of Osha. Over the course of the episode, Queermere teaches Osha about how to use the Force and how different his way of teaching is to the Jedi's way of teaching. And it's that difference in teaching that he does is why the Jedi see him as a threat. I really do think that is a great thing that they're not calling him a Sith outrightly, since I still don't think he really is. He has more in common with the Knights of Ren than a fully fledged Sith. He still could very well be a Sith and be actually trained by a Sith, which is a lot of theories that everyone has that we're going to see Queermere's master near the end of the series. But I like that we are exploring the world of Force users outside of the usual Jedi and Sith, and Queermere's comments and the little nuggets of wisdom he tries to impart onto Osha almost feel like they're a combination of Jedi teachings and Sith teachings, since we also learn that Queermere was once a Jedi Knight, and he even channels a little bit of Obi-Wan and Yoda when talking about the Cortosis helmet he wears and how it blocks everything out like the helmets the students wear when training with remotes. Nothing he says either is even remotely evil. He just wants them to have freedom in the Force, something that the Jedi don't want, and we've seen that from different point of views where the Jedi just come into people's villages and want to test their children, and it's like law and they can't have covens and everything popping up teaching people the Force because it's not the way they teach it. It's very interesting how they are portraying the Force in this and how they're doing the different teachings and just exploring everything, as I said, outside of the Jedi and Sith teachings that we've seen countless times. Exploring the seduction of the dark side in a bit more detail than what we've seen in the movies is great as well, and you can absolutely see where it would work as well. You know, he's talking about the freedom and being one's own person, which, if you recall, is what Osha wanted since she was a child. She didn't want to be part of this witch's coven or with her sister. She wanted to be off being a Jedi, being her own person, and I can see why that would actually work on her and why she's beginning to kind of question, like, hey, maybe this is kind of for me. And I think that would actually be really kind of cool if we end up seeing a bit of a switch here where we see May kind of go towards the light side, whereas Osha starts falling towards the dark side, again because they're twins. They're one half of one thing, so they're like a dyad more or less, so there has to be a balance, and one light, one dark. You can't have both be the same thing. While Osha takes a journey towards the dark side, her sister May continues to pretend to be her on Sol's Jedi ship, doing everything she can to stop Sol from pursuing Queermere and the real Osha. Sol again doesn't do anything to beat the allegations, as while contacting the temple, he also doesn't tell them what happened fully and even turns off his transponder, preventing Vernestra and her team from tracking him. Despite messing with the ship's systems, May is thwarted by Basil and Pip, and Sol stuns her. I honestly didn't think that Sol would figure out that it was May so quickly. Being that he had some more pressing matters to deal with, I could understand why his vision would have been clouded in that regard. He definitely did something at May and Osha's village 16 years prior, and be it actively killing the witches or covering something up that happened there, is pulling him apart on the inside, and I really want to praise Lee Jung-jae in this episode. His acting is just phenomenal, especially once he begins to kind of go over everything in his mind and sort of unpack everything that's been happening in the last couple of days for him, and it all sort of comes out in this sort of brief, ever so brief moment of emotions, something the Jedi are not allowed to have. But interestingly, something we've seen Sol tap into quite a few times, especially in just the last episode where he tapped into anger and he very nearly almost killed Queermere because of it. So I just want to also talk a little bit about the planet that Osha and Queermere have arrived on, as lots of people seem to think it's Ahch-To, and I think since that episode has aired, the showrunner Leslie Headland has confirmed that it's not Ahch-To, it's some other planet. But I can understand why people would actually think that. It looks very similar to that, and I'm pretty sure that was the point. But I think thanks to Queermere having that lair there, the Cortosis helmet, I'm inclined to believe that it's Baldemnik, a world mentioned in the Darth Plagueis novel, which was a base of operations for the Sith and had many Cortosis veins on its surface that were mined. It fits the MO to a T, and also I'm pretty sure in the background of some of Queemir's little cave lair, there's some veins of cortosis running through the wall. There's definitely some sort of mineral running through the wall of the little base he has there. And hell, even the base itself feels like a very metal smelting factory type setting. It's all these heavy blast furnace looking things that they sleep in and very heavy metal doors. I could see this definitely being some sort of metal smelting factory. Venestra plays an important part in the episode as well, as she is alerted to Sol's failed mission and takes it upon herself to go and check out what happened on Kofar with another small team, feeling somewhat responsible being that she was the one who put Sol on this mission. Like Sol, Venestra is definitely hiding something more, as she is still playing the political angle, even mentioning a senator named Raincourt, who sounds like the type of senator who will do anything to make sure the Jedi are seen in a less than welcoming light amongst the senators. I think mentioning the senator by name and kind of drawing a lot of attention to that name is no small matter, and I think we'll see that senator very soon. I do know that David Harewood was cast in the show and we haven't seen his character yet, and that's the type of character he would play, and I wouldn't even put it past them to make the senator the Sith, because, you know, there's a precedence there of the Sith, you know, having a dual identity. You know, we saw it with Palpatine. I could definitely see a Sith before Palpatine adopting a senator role, and that's where Palpatine maybe gets his inspiration from a little bit. Along with Venestra joining the story a little bit more, we also get some neat callbacks to the High Republic books, and it's really for people who have been reading the books like me, and that is Venestra's problem with hyperspace is brought up. And in the books, when Venestra travels through hyperspace, she often gets some sort of hyperspace vision, and it throws her off balance of sorts. It's not delved in too deeply, so I don't think it will actually, you know, play into anything. I think it's just like a neat little nod for the fans, but it would be cool if maybe she does see something that helps her on her mission. I think that would be really kind of cool, and it would introduce kind of a new concept to the Star Wars universe, because that power is new to the High Republic, and I would like to see that brought to life on screen, because we've seen visuals of it through little illustrations from some of the books, and it looks really cool that she gets these visions in hyperspace, and I'd like to see that in live action. Her infamous lightsaber whip also makes an ever so brief appearance in this episode when she kills one of the giant bugs that they think maybe killed all of the Jedi. However, she knows that it was something else, and I'm pretty sure the lightsaber whip was shown for a good reason, as earlier on in the episode when Queemir is bathing, we see that he has this massive scar down his back. My theory, and lots of other people's theory, is that maybe Queemir was Venestra's apprentice, and when he went rogue, she attacked him, and hence the very whip-like scar on his back, and maybe she thought he was dead. And maybe this is a similar situation to the May Osha thing, where Sol thought that May had died, and maybe Venestra thinks that Queemir died, and that's why she never thought about him or brought him up, because she seems very interested now after learning that there is some other party at play here in this, after seeing the bodies on Kofar covered in lightsaber burns. And it would also be kind of a cool parallel, you know, you got the two sisters meeting, you got Sol reckoning with what he has done in the past with a former apprentice, that being Osha, and then you also have Venestra reckoning with something that she did with the past with a former apprentice. I think there's really neat parallels to be had there. Overall, episode 6 of the Acolyte was definitely a slower paced episode. I know a lot of people won't like that, but all of the stuff with the seduction of the dark side between Queemir and Osha was fantastic. I loved all of that. Lee Jung-jae again brings his A game and just does some phenomenal acting in the few scenes he has throughout the episode. I love getting to explore more about the Sith and their teachings, and how Osha and May are kind of switching roles a little bit here throughout the episode. I think that's a really neat idea, where there's a balance being brought between these two people who are a dyad. That's really interesting. I honestly have no idea where the show can go from here. It's definitely kind of upended itself every couple of episodes, and I think the next episode might be a flashback episode where we get to learn the Jedi side on what happened in the village on Brendok. But either way, whatever happens, I'm really excited for it. I've been enjoying the show immensely, and I just cannot wait to see where it goes from here. I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10.